good morning and welcome along to Estoril in Portugal for round one of FIM-CV Repsol. Yes, that's right, we are back and ready to go racing, becoming the first two-wheeled world championship to resume following the coronavirus enforced break. And you know what, it feels pretty good to be able to finally say that and bring you some racing at long last, which of course is thanks to those on the front line across Europe and around the world whose continuous hard work has allowed us to return, albeit in circumstances slightly different than what we're used to. Jack Appleyard here alongside Lewis Sotheby to bring you 5 races today as the FIM Junior Moto 3 World Championship, the European Moto 2 Championship and first, the Hawkers European Talent Cup start their 2020 campaigns. And as you can see, conditions here in Estoril, just 30 minutes outside of Lisbon, fortunately, are the polar opposite of the torrential rain that we had to endure for the opening round of the 2019 season. Thankfully, Lewis, the sun has been shining down all weekend, and masks has, as you can see there, part of the protocol of the new normal, social distancing in place as well. We'll get to that in a moment, but first, here is a review of what went down in 2019, starting with the wet weather here in Estoril. The opening race of the season went the way of Ivan Ortola. The Aspar man picked up a double at Estoril, but from then on in, it was all about Ethan Guevara, the number 28 aboard the Cuna de Campeones machine. Never before in European Talent Cup history had anybody won more than 2 races on the bounce. This man was able to pick up 5 race victories on the bounce. Some of them were utterly impressive as well, including this one at Catalonia when he battled back from a handful of mistakes to beat Fermin Aldier here at Aragon as well. Not only did he have to endure a long lap penalty, but he also made a mistake on the final lap, but still was able to come back and show blistering pace to pick up the win there as well. They moved on to Jerez, where he picked up another victory, which would crown him champion in dominant fashion. Fortunately for everybody else in the European Talent Cup, he moves in to the Junior World Championship this year, meaning it is all up for grabs and all to fight for as we start the 2020 season. Good afternoon, Lewis. Welcome along to FIM-CV Repsol. The European Talent Cup kicks us off in a matter of moments. I'm sure you're looking forward to getting underway.
Yeah, hi Jack, hi everyone. It's great to be here. 240 days have been and gone since we were last racing in the FIM-CV Repsol, and the world has changed, families and lives have changed, perspectives have changed, and motorsport has certainly had to know its place in the recent global pandemic. But we're all delighted to see that the FIM-CV Repsol is back today. We're delighted that circumstances have allowed us to race today. It's obviously a very, very different kind of race weekend that we're used to. First of all, the fact that we're racing on a weekday rather than on a Sunday. But no, it's fantastic to be back. It's a great place to start the season, as you mentioned, very, very different circumstances to last year when the temperatures were barely scraping double figures back in April 2019. We're in the heart of summer now in Estoril, and as we were walking the circuit yesterday, it certainly felt like it. But these are perfect conditions for racing, and 5 great races to hopefully put smiles back on the faces of motorcycle racing fans.
Yeah, hopefully that will be the case. There is your pole man, David Alonso, on pole position for the first time in his European Talent Cup career, and here is how he did it. 2 qualifying sessions yesterday, one of them held in the morning and the second one in the afternoon in blistering heat, whereby nobody was able to improve because of the heat. So it was the times from our earlier qualifying session that set the grid, and it was utter dominance from this man. The number 80, the Colombian David Alonso, starts from pole position for the first time in his European Talent Cup career. In fact, starts from the front row for the first time in his European Talent Cup career.
I will try to be quick and with a good pace, and we are going to try to win, but it is not easy, so we will see.
certainly going to be a tough man to beat, Lewis. He's got form in the European Talent Cup as well, finished 5th in the series last year with 4 podium finishes, including a 3rd place here as well. And just to make matters worse for everybody else, he says that Estoril is his favourite circuit. Not that we'd be able to guess that anyway by the fact that he's half a second clear of everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. He's looked very, very good all weekend. With the exception of one session on Sunday in free practice, he's been quickest right throughout the weekend here. And despite a crash in Q2, he's looked the man to beat. He crashed at turn 7 yesterday afternoon, by which point he'd already secured pole position and no one's really been able to get in touch with him. But as we always say, the race is a very different matter altogether. He's got to get the start right. He's got to ace it from there. He's got to try and gap the field, as difficult as it is to do on these machines. And the rare riders queuing up behind him will be looking to try and keep him very much in sight. But yeah, as you say, Alonso has been the rider to beat here. Took his first ETC podium here a year ago, and he'll be hoping to win to his Estoril CV.
You will have seen to his left-hand side there, David Alonso, that he had Nico Tirol, a former 125cc world champion, who acts as team manager and rider coach for the Aspar Junior squad. They've got a handful of riders across the European Talent Cup and the Junior World Championship as well, and Tirol plays a huge part in developing those young riders and making sure they're ready for the step into the World Championship. Here is our first debutant to talk of, Angel Piqueras, a prodigal talent. He's already the 2018 Pre-Moto 4 champion in Spain. He's also the Spanish Moto 4 champion from last year as well. He's won 2 championships in 2 years, and he's got his move up into the European Talent Cup with one of the best teams as well in the talent team, Estrella Galicia. So he is one to keep an eye on, the 13-year-old.
Yeah, he is. He's looked very, very good as well. And it's very, very difficult to try and pinpoint one talent within Spanish motorcycle racing who to look out for, because there are so many of them. They've got almost an embarrassment of riches of exciting young talent. But Piqueras, everything he races in, he tends to win in, and he'll be looking to continue that this afternoon. We've got a quick shot of Zonta van der Gerberg as well, who starts on the outside of the front row. Comes with some good racing genes, son of the former 500cc Moto Grand Prix racer Jürgen van der Gerberg. Very calm, mature young man, and I think he's another rider who's going to be trying to keep Alonso very much in sight this afternoon.
Yeah, his best result in the ETC so far. He had his debut year last year, did the 14-year-old from Holland, 7th place in Aragon. So the fact that he's starting from the front row, I've certainly been hoping to go a lot better. Incidentally, both David Alonso and Zonta van den Gerberg, part of the Red Bull Rookies Championship, which starts later on this year. On to the second row then, and another debutant in Alberto Ferrandez on the championship-winning bike of last year, the Cuna de Campione squad that, of course, was able to guide Ethan Guevara to his 2019 championship, and we're hoping for similar exploits from the young Spaniard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's another rider who, I mean, he's only 12 years old, and he's in such a short career, he's done an awful lot, winning of the Hawkers Cup as well in 2018. So again, he's another rider who's got a big future ahead of him, and it starts here today in the Hawkers European Talent Cup. Ivan Ortola starting in 5th position. And he's a rider who, perhaps unlike many on this grid, has a bit of experience to draw on. He's raced in the European Talent Cup before, a very, very strong rider last year. The runner-up indeed last year with 3 wins. Surely, if it's difficult, I know it's difficult to pick a favourite out of this, but Ortola surely does start as the slight favourite.
Yeah, absolutely. He won both races here, as you rightly say, Lewis, last year here in Estoril by a combined margin. Of course, 2 races, as we do have here today. So his combined margin of winning last year was 0.092 across 2 races, that is. So that's just an indication of what to expect today.
Yeah, absolutely. And the finish to the race last year, when he was going side by side with Fenton Seabright across the line, was as close as it comes in the very, very difficult conditions that we had. Of course, no repeat of those conditions today. But yeah, he's going to be a rider to very much keep an eye on. Completing the second row, we just caught a brilliant glimpse of Marcos Ruda on the number 69. Second year in race 2 last year, so he's also got some past form at Estoril to draw on. It's his second year in the European Talent Cup, and he was a top 10 rider last year, so he's another rider who will have a decent shot at making a step up and maybe even challenging the podium today.
Yeah, change of team for him this year was with the Cuna de Campione squad. Last year, now a part of the Leglice Academy. On to the third row of the grid, fronted by Marco Tapia, the number 13, again just 13 years of age. Best finish last year of 12th in the European Talent Cup. It was his debut year last year, so already showing a big improvement and a big jump forward from what we saw from the Spaniard last year.
Yeah, he improved a lot as the year went on last year. He definitely found his best form towards the end of the season as he learned the bikes, learned the tracks, and learned the new level of competition. That's something that we can't really understate with these riders. A lot of them have got experience, a lot of them have got success at national level before arriving in the European Talent Cup, but this is a whole new level. This is a real step up for the riders that are taking on the Hawkers European Talent Cup Challenge this year, and that includes Alvaro Carpe, who we're looking at now on the third row of the grid. Starts 8th today. Not a great start to his day, it has to be said. He did have a bit of a crash this morning in morning warm-up, but he is another highly rated product of the Cuna de Campeones, the 13-year-old from Murcia. So he's another rider that comes with a glowing reputation, and he'll be looking to live up to that today.
Yeah, a bit of a surprise package, to be perfectly honest. A part of the Spanish Moto 4 Championship last year, was only able to pick up 1 podium across 2019, but has made the jump into the European Talent Cup and is already challenging inside the top 10. Starts from 8th for this one. The final place on the third row of the grid is the Italian Filippo Farioli, the number 7 from Bergamo, 15 years of age. This is his debut in the European Talent Cup after taking part in the Italian Pre-Moto 3 Championship last year, a championship that he finished 3rd in with victories at Imola and Misano. So a man that is used to taking victory, but as you've just said, Lewis, it's a completely different kettle of fish moving up from a national championship to this European series. It
is. They're not easy circuits to win on either, Misano and Imola, so he's got some good pedigree on Grand Prix level circuits, as Estoril certainly is. We're looking now at Julio Garcia, who completes the top 10, starts at the front of row 4. He's a rider that's part of the Jerez Andalusia talent program. It's his 2nd year in the European Talent Cup. Just 13 years old, although he does turn 14 on Saturday, so an early happy birthday to him. He'll be looking to mark that with a top 10 finish in what is his 2nd season in the European Talent Cup. So here is the starting grid for our first race of the day, the first Hawkers European Talent Cup race in 2020, and it's David Alonso on pole position, joined by Angel Piqueras and Zonta van den Gorberg. Row 2 of the grid, Alberto Ferrandez, Ivan Ortola and Marcos Ruda. With row 3, Marco Tapia, Alvaro Carpe and Filippo Farioli. Julio Garcia, De Giro Sacco and Colin Vaya make up row 4, with Juan Rodriguez, Matteo Pedano and Justin Foucault on row 6. We have Ezwan Sharil, Jacob Rulstone and Adrian Cruces. Row 7 of the grid, Plonk, Sandoval and Berta, Philip Ton, the German, Meyer and Scott, the American, and then row 9 of the grid, Volpe, Voigt and Morelli, the naughty row of the grid. We'll come to that in a minute. Yeah, all 3 riders carrying group penalties. Detweiler, Almona, Seal and Bernal on row 10. Trias, Perrin and Collins, the Canadian, on row 11, and completing our line, Misera, Perron and Pavelek, the Pole, 36th on the grid. Another row further back, the final one of the grid, making it a 38-strong grid, is Marceau Lapierre and Matthias Passweek. 38 riders all fighting for the opening victory in the Hawkers European Talent Cup in 2020. Oh, and we've got early problems as well for the number 58 there of Matthias Passweek, the man on the last spot on the grid. It looks like he might have stalled it. They're struggling to get it going, and as a result of that, the fact that the 1-minute board has gone up, if the bike is stalled, they have to roll it off the grid. That is the protocol. So he will start from pit lane. Will the Pole making his European Talent Cup debut? Not the way you would like your first ever race to start. No, and you can see the agitation from him there as his bike was being wheeled off the grid. I mean, he's starting at the back anyway, so in some ways it's not a huge disadvantage from where he was already starting, but that's not the way when you're making, what is essentially your debut at this level. He's obviously raced at Polish national level, has Pasiuk, but no, this is his first time at this level, and unfortunately, if he does start this first race of the season, he's going to have to do so from pit lane. Normally in the Hawkers European Talent Cup, we see a whole host of action. The finishes normally are extremely tight. If you've never seen a race before, groups of 10, 12, 15 are not uncommon. However, just as a precursor, as we said at the top of the show, our poleman David Alonso did qualify half a second quicker than anybody else. He looks as though he's just got an edge on the rest of his rivals at this opening round of 2020. As you can see, conditions absolutely perfect. Little bit of a wind, but the sun is beaming down on the Portuguese circuit.
We've had to wait quite some time, but we're certainly ready to get going.
Yeah, we're looking forward to this. The first race of the 2020 season. As we've already discussed, we've had to wait a little bit longer than we expected or hoped for this opening round of the season, but plenty of action to come. This is one of the places on the circuit where we're likely to see action. The uphill climb into turns 9 and 10. That's one of the places where you can maybe put a little bit of a block pass on your opponents as you go up the hill. And as we walk in the circuit, the camera angle doesn't really do justice as to just how steep a climb that is as you go up into turn 9s and 10. The other corners that you might want to look out for some overtakes. Turn 1, obviously, on the long run down the main straight. Turn 2 is another potential option. And turn 6, MotoGP fans will know that corner for the famous Nicky Hayden-Danny Pedrosa collision of 2006. Hopefully no repeats of that today.
Having ran the circuit yesterday, Lewis, I can confirm that chicane is very, very steep, especially coming at the end of the lap as well. When I was just running out of puff, it was quite a climb to get up that and finish the lap. Hopefully no such issues for this man. The Colombian David Alonso starts his first ever Hawkers European Talent Cup race from pole position, joined there by Angel Piqueras, the debutant, already a champion in 2018 and 2019. Can he do it again in 2020? And the Dutchman Zonta van den Gorberg also starting from a first ever front row. 16 laps ahead of the youngsters as 2020 finally gets underway. The green flag waves at the back. Keep your eye on the lights in the top left-hand corner. Angel Piqueras rolls into position. Nothing wrong with that as long as he doesn't jump the start now. The lights are on. And we are underway in 2020. A dynamite start from David Alonso from pole position. Meanwhile, Piqueras went backwards off the line. Surely it's going to be Alonso that's going to have the long run down to turn 1 covered. Yeah, the number 80 will lead us into turn 1. Meanwhile, that's a move from the second row of the grid coming through from the number 54 of Alberto Ferrandez. Great start from the Cuna de Campeones man.
Yeah, Carpe's made a good start as well on the 83. He's made a good jump from the third row of the grid. He's up into third place at the moment. Having a look up the inside of Ferrandez. But as you mentioned, Piqueras just went backwards. Just a very, very slow jump off the lines. Nothing wrong with his reaction time. Moving the bike before the lights went out. Nothing wrong with that, as you mentioned. But once the lights did go out, there was very little movement.
Just looked as though he bogged down. He didn't get it right whatsoever. He's managed to recover a little bit now. He's up to 4th place, is the Spaniard, just on the tail of the man in 3rd place, Alvaro Carpe. As you rightly pointed out, Lewis, made a great start through from the 3rd row of the grid. Meanwhile, already, as there goes the man recovering from that poor start, Angel Piqueras, under the inside of Alvaro Carpe, who looks to have gone backwards there.
Wide, yeah.
He went a long way wide there and has dropped possibly outside of the top 10 now to the number 83, having a couple of problems on this opening lap. I was going to say already a couple of issues you would have to think for Alberto Ferrandez and Angel Piqueras in 2nd and 3rd place, because David Alonso already has 3 or 4 bike lengths over the guys trying to chase him down. Yeah,
Marcos Ruda's another rider who's made progress. He's up 2 spots from 6th to 4th in the race at the moment. He's got Ivan Ortola right on his tail. Ortola starting from the 2nd row. He's held station pretty much, but he's one of the riders who'll be wanting to try and keep David Alonso inside. He's already making a little bit of a break as he comes out of the last corner to start the 2nd lap. Little bit of a gap already, and if they're not very careful, he'll be away and gone. Once you've lost that slipstream on these machines, it's very difficult to get it back.
Good news, Lewis. I had to keep my eye on this one after waiting over 200 days. All 38 riders did not jump the start. I thought we were surely we were going to have at least one that was far too eager, far too keen on this first race of 2020. But fair play, all 38, no jump starts. We are underway and we are off. 1 lap down, 2020 Hawkers European Talent Cup is right underway. Meanwhile, there's a move through to 2nd place for David Alonso's teammate. That looks like our pre-race favourite, the number 48 of Ivan Ortola. As we mentioned, already has 2 victories from this time last year around the Portuguese circuit, and he can see problems starting to grow ahead of this battle for 2nd place. He's got to the front of it. I'm sure it won't be long before we see him tap the back of his bike and say, guys, we can't be messing around here. We have to try and close in on David Alonso, because another couple of laps and he will be gone.
Yeah, lead's already already over a second, Jack. 1.2 seconds as we come through the halfway point of this second lap. It was 0.9 over the line for Alonso, so he's already increased that by nearly 4/10 on this lap. And that's the danger these guys have got. They're fighting for second. They all want to be the rider to lead this chase group, but unless they actually work together and tow each other up to David Alonso, essentially it's going to be counterproductive. They're just going to slow each other up as they outbrake each other, dive up the inside of each other, slipstream past each other. Alonso has got no one to worry about. He's able to ride his own rhythm out front, and that's certainly what he's doing. They have pulled a 10th.5 back in the third sector at the moment, with this group now led by Piqueras. But as I say, this gap is over a second, and they can't let that get much bigger.
Piqueras, just 13 years of age, but what a riding style he's got through the final corner here. He is all action, properly throws himself off the bike. You can see why he's already won championships in 2018 and 2019 on a national level here in Spain. What a talent that kid is, just 13. You can see a proper pocket rocket. No surprise that the Estoril Galicia concern, who have had a whole host of world champions come through their ranks over the past few years, have picked him up and signed him up for this European Talent Cup campaign.
Yeah, a rider who didn't get away very well at the start. As you can see him just at the back of this second group is the 84 of Van der Gerberg. He was pretty quick on that second lap. He was the closest rider in terms of pace to the leading two Aspar bikes of Alonso and Ortola. Gone from 3rd to 6th at the start of this race. So keep an eye out for him on the 84 in 6th place. He'll be looking to make progress as well.
Ortola gets back to the front of this second group of riders, the fight for second place. Incidentally, the gap went up by just 1/10 of a second last time around. Now 1.3 is David Alonso's advantage. We were just saying that Ivan Ortola got to the front of that group, but it's all changed once again, because there goes Piqueras back in front of Ivan Ortola. And Ortola will have one issue. As you can see, he's quite a little bit taller than everybody else. It's a little bit more difficult for him to get behind the bubble when we make the run out of turn 5 down towards turn 6, and of course down the start finish straight as well. He's been easily drafted past on a number of occasions already, so when he's trying to lead this group and try and chase down his teammate ahead, he's having a couple of issues there, because he's unable to lead the group because Piqueras is just so much quicker when he's tucked in behind him.
And that makes such a big difference on these bikes, as you mentioned, that slipstream, that drive down the straight. And as you say, if you're creating a much bigger hole in the air, not only are you making yourself slower, but you're helping the guys behind you to tow past you. So Ortola has that problem in this European Talent Cup race. We'll see how he goes now as he pulls out from behind Piqueras, whether he can make the most of this slipstream to try and take second place. Ruder's behind him in 4th. Ferrandez is 5th. Van der Gerberg still in 6th place, although he set the fastest lap of the race last time round, just 0.005 of a second quicker than the leader, Alonso, whose lead now is up to 1.6 over this group. So Van der Gerberg, second lap in a row, lapping very, very quickly indeed. So he might be the rider. If he can get to the front of this chase group in second, he might be able to close the gap to Alonso. But at the moment, no real progress for Van der Gerberg as he sees the 74 of Sacco closing up behind him.
Well, the run into turn 1 there for a second, I thought there's absolutely no chance 4 or 5 is going to go into 1. There were arms, legs, knees, absolutely everywhere, but somehow they all managed to make it into turn 1 and out of turn 1 as well. As a result, it's Marcos Ruder, number 69, that's come out of that gaggle in front. And there we've got a follower, that's the number 27.
Sandoval.
Romeo Sandoval, the 12-year-old, the first man to go down. He is the teammate, of course, to Alberto. No, he's not the teammate to Alberto Ferrandez. He's the team to the man that started from row 3 of the grid. Alvaro Carpe, of course, made that mistake on the opening lap and has dropped backwards as a result of that. Now down to 14th is Alvaro Carpe. So he was in the running after the first half a lap, but that mistake has cost him dearly because he's just hanging on to a point-scoring finish at the moment.
Yeah, as you mentioned, that battling into turn 1, that really has slowed this second group up. Alonso's lead now is touching 2 seconds. So it may come a point in this race where these riders just accept that the leader has gone and they then turn their attention to their battle for second place. I'm not sure whether there is much of a code amongst Hawker's European Talent Cup riders to work together to try and pull a leader back. I think it's mainly see rider, overtake rider. And it looks like Ivan Ortola in 3rd place is going to employ that strategy now as he comes down the main straight in the slipstream. Van der Gerberg still back in 6th place. Ferrandez and Piqueras just ahead of him as we go across the line. And it was actually Van der Gerber who had a very slow lap that time around. He was back in the 149s, having lapped in the 47s previously to that. And it was the 13 of Marco Tapia, the Italian in third, the number 13 in ninth, who now sets the fastest lap of the race. He's the only rider that time around in the 147s.
I think the big issue for Ivan Ortola here, as probably one of the most experienced riders on the grid at 15 years of age, who was runner-up in this series last year, he would absolutely love for the guys behind just to be a little bit sensible for a few laps and chase them down. But unfortunately, when you're dealing with 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds, youthful exuberance almost always comes into the case, and there's absolutely no chance that they're just going to sit behind the man in front of him for a handful of laps, although it probably would be beneficial. You say, Lewis, that those guys in the fight for second place are going to have to at some point just admit the fact that David Alonso is away with it at the front. I think we're getting pretty close to that moment. It's now nearly 2.5 seconds the Colombian's advantage. You can see on screen there, he's away with it at the moment, and it doesn't look like these guys behind are going to be able to close him in. Although Ortola has put in a good lap here himself, he's been able to put in a couple of bike lengths over Ruder behind him in third place, and this probably will help his cause.
Yeah, and this is the part of the circuit where that extra size and extra strength perhaps might well suit him through these tight, twisty switchbacks at the end of the lap. If he could just pull out a few bike lengths before he gets onto the straight, so he's clear of Ruder in third place. He's out of range as they get into turn 1, as Piqueras there runs a little bit wide as they go around turn 10. That might leave him exposed, as it does leave him exposed to Van der Gerber, who's trying to go around the outside of him and get that slingshot onto the main straight. But as we stand at the moment, Alonso across the line. That lead as we complete lap 5, or we go on to lap 5, is all the way up to 2.4 seconds.
Another faller, that's the number 61 that's gone down of Ilan Perron from France, the 16-year-old, the oldest man in the field, and you can see probably the tallest man in the field as well. A shame for the number 61, gone down at turn 6, but fortunately up and okay. Meanwhile, in the fight for the lead, still David Alonso that leads here in Estoril, with Ivan Ortola, Marcos Ruder and Alberto Ferrandez trying their level best to try and close down the Colombian. Up to 5th place now, and just put in the fastest first sector we've seen so far is Dejira Sacco, a man that we've not really mentioned, but we probably should have done, because he has form in this championship. A 2019 European Talent Cup, finished 7th in the series with podiums in Catalonia and Jerez, was only outside of the top 8 on 3 occasions last year. So he is a regular front runner, and it's good to see that he's showing it again, the Japanese/Spaniard in 2020.
Yeah, if you've spotted the Grand Prix motorcycle racing connection to his first name, that is no coincidence. He is named after the late MotoGP racer Dejiro Cato. Does have a Spanish father, born in Spain, and he's raced his entire career up to now in Spain. His grandmother says it's her dream to see him race in Japan, which amazingly he hasn't done yet. But if he continues on this path, he no doubt will in the future.
The gap has increased, 2.7 seconds now. David Alonso leads over Ivan Ortola, so despite Ortola taking control of that battle for second place, it's not particularly helped him. Alonso still able to lap a couple of tenths quicker than his teammate, and as a result, that gap is growing quite considerably. It looks as though, with 11 laps to go, soon to be 10 laps to go, that this is going to be a fight for second place. But anything can happen in the European Talent Cup. If last year is anything to go by, expect the unexpected. So let's not curse David Alonso just yet. Battle for second place, still Ortola that leads that one, with Ruder tucked in behind in second place, with Santa Gorberg now starting to find his way back through the field after a couple of errors a few laps ago. Another faller that's gone down, that's Colin Veijer, the number 30, the Dutchman riding for the Apex Cardoso concern. The Dutchman making his debut this year, part of the Red Bull rookies as well, but he's certainly one to keep an eye on for the future, is Colin Veijer.
I think that's down at turn 9, Jack. We saw yellow flags coming out at turn 9 on the previous lap, and I wonder whether he's perhaps had a little bit of a high side coming out of those tight switchbacks. As we look at this second group now, Ortola once again finding himself swamped on the run down towards turn 6. He loses second place to Marcos Ruder, and this second... themselves up, and it's enabling that second group to increase. And we've got the riders back in 10th, 11th, 12th, who are actually lapping quicker than them at the moment. As we take another look at the start, notice Piqueras already with several riders ahead of him after that difficult start to the race as he tries to make up some ground on the brakes into turn 1.
And notice already the advantage that David Alonso had before he'd even got into turn 1. A super start from pole position, and he's looked back since then as we have a little bit of action down into turn 1. Unsurprisingly, it looks as though that might have been the man that's just crashed out, Colin Via, on that green Apex Cardoso European Talent Cup machine that was squeezing up the inside of someone. Fortunately, he has hobbled away from that incident at turn number 9. Back at the front, 9 laps to go, and it's still the Colombian that leads, now 3.5 seconds clear of his teammate. If anything, his pace is improving.
Yeah, he's got that rhythm that we were talking about. He's just lapping consistently in the mid 148s. He doesn't need to do much more than that, with the chase group struggling to get out of the 49s at the moment as they overtake each other with incredible regularity. As we look at Ortola back at the front of that again. Ruda continues to be his nearest challenger. We've got a problem here for Bartolomé Perrin. That looks like the bike has stopped on him. It'd be interesting to see if we get a replay of that, otherwise he's trying to recover from a crash, whether the bike has just stopped. That certainly is a crash. That's Van der Gerber that's down.
The Dutchman's gone down. He was in the fight for second place and third place as well, eyeing up a debut podium in the European Talent Cup, but the Dutchman has gone down and he is absolutely crestfallen. Let's see what happened here.
Oh yeah, he gets caught on the outside. There's a bit of a bottleneck there into turn 2, and Van der Gerber just gets caught on the outside of that. Nowhere to go for the young Dutchman. So yeah, unfortunate ending to his race. That just goes to show in these races, in such tight battles, a bottleneck can form as 2 or 3 riders have a go at each other into a corner, and he found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time.
He's absolutely right to be fuming with that one, of course. Not the rider's fault. I think it might have been Ferrandez or possibly Dejire Sacco. He's the man that's dropped down to 10th place, so it probably was the Japanese rider that was the unfortunate recipient of an elbow that then forced him into Van den Gorberg. But when you're chasing a debut podium and you're right in the mix as well, you'd be understandably devastated to get taken out like that. Fortunately for him, he will start race 2 from the front row once again. He'll get another go at it from 3rd on the grid in about 3 or 4 hours' time. But that incident, Lewis, has allowed 2nd and 3rd place just to break clear ever so slightly from those guys right there that are currently battling it out for 4th.
Yeah, some very interesting lines going on. Piqueras coming out of turn 9 into turn 10 was taking a very interesting line as they approach there. Keep an eye out for him on the 18. He is surrounded at the moment as they go into turn 1. We've got the Leopard bike in there of Tapia. We've got Ferrandez and and Cruces are in there as well. It's such a competitive battle for what is now looking like 4th place. As you mentioned, that gap has built between Ortola and Ruda, who are fighting for 2nd, and Ferrandez. It's half a second, which might not sound like a lot, but trust me, on these Moto3 bikes, it's quite a lot.
Supermarket route being taken there by Marco Tapia, was in 5th place, but he went wide. I think that was at turn 3, and it's allowed him to drop further backwards. Meanwhile, worth a mention, the number 10 of Adrian Cruces, a part of the Estrella Galicia talent team, started from 18th on the grid after being handed a 4-place grid penalty for being underweight, but he's already made his way through to inside the top 10 and is contesting in this fight for a podium finish. The number 10, 13 years of age, has history in the European Talent Cup. 2 podiums last year at Albacete and Valencia. Finished off the year in great style with podiums at both of our final 2 rounds of 2019.
Yeah, 10 riders in this battle for 2nd place. It starts at Ruda, who's currently holding 2nd place in that battle with Ortola. Ferrandez looks like he's closed that gap back down again, although Piqueras is now going past him into 4th place. But this battle goes all the way down to Marco Morelli on the 95 in 11th place. He's just in touch with this. He's just 2 seconds adrift of Ruda in 2nd place. Then a 5-second gap to Volpi in 12th. Carpe, who, as I mentioned, started very well. He's faded to 13th with Julio Garcia and Jacob Rulstone completing the points at the moment.
First slip of 2020 there, Lewis. I said Adrian Cruces as a part of the Estrella Galicia talent team. That, of course, was last year. His jump ship is now a part of the Cuna de Campeones squad, so you'll be able to see the number 10 on the bright orange Cuna de Campeones machines rather than a 10. Oh, who's gone down there? Talking of, it's 2 of the Cuna de Campeones bikes. Well, it looks as though it may well be Dejira Sacco. Yes, it is, the number 74, and that means the other one is probably Adrian Cruz says it. No, it's not. It's Juan Rodriguez that's gone down, the number 38. So it looks as though teammate has taken out teammate into turn one, and Sacco and Rodriguez are both down.
Yeah, disaster for that team. I mean, they've got so many competitors up the front, but yeah, at the moment it's looking like it's all down to one rider in that battle. Now we'll get a close look at it again as they're coming down to turn one. Let's see if this is another wrong place, wrong time. It is. One of the riders just tags the other. It's difficult to see who was trailing the two. We think Sacco was the second of those. He was a tenth of a second behind Rodriguez as they crossed the line, although by no means does that mean that was the order by the time they arrived in the braking zone for turn one. So difficult to really make a judgment on that, but as you say, disaster for the Campeones team, who've lost two of their podium challenges.
There's another man that's gone down, the number 3 of Matteo Pedano, 17 years of age, from France, was outside of the points, so unfortunately he will drop further back now, and it will be a DNF for his first race of 2020. What happened here? Looks as though it's going to be another coming together. Yeah, just ran out of room, unfortunately, and picked it up and ran into another rider. That happening at turn 4. Fortunately for the Frenchman, he will get another go at it later on this afternoon, but back at the front, there is David Alonso now, just over 4 seconds clear of his teammate Ivan Ortola, who has taken back second place from Angel Piqueras. In the back of your picture, you'll be able to see that now, but he's got Marcos Ruda for company to the left of him. He's got Piqueras looking to fight back to the right of him. Who's going to take control into the opening corner with now 6 laps to go? It is Ortola that holds second place. Piqueras there in third, and Ruda in fourth, as that battle for the final podium places as a result of that crash just 1 lap ago at turn number 1 goes from 10 riders down to 8.
Yeah, great move by Kreutzes there up the inside into turn 2, taking Ruda for 4th place. A nice little dive up the inside. We've also seen some interesting moves from Piqueras. He's so good on the brakes, is the young Spaniard on the number 18, just 13 years of age, and he's looking to mark his debut at this level with a podium, and he's got every chance at the moment. He's on the wrong side at the moment of Ortola, but he's so strong in the straights, or more to the point, Ortola is losing so much in the straights that it didn't matter if he was on the outside, he just zooms past him. Well,
this is our first look at Angel Piqueras, as well as all of you guys at home, and I don't know about you, Lewis, I am extremely impressed with the 13-year-old. He looks incredible on the bike. No fear whatsoever, no surprise whatsoever that these guys right here, fronted by Kev Coughlin, a former World Championship Moto2 rider, as the team manager for the Junior World Championship and the European Talent Cup guys, have signed him up for the 2020 season.
Yeah, we're coming into the final stage of this race now. When they cross the line, we'll have 5 laps to go, and it's this point where we'll start to have to keep an eye on who leads over the line in this group, because Ortola will no doubt be very, very nervous of coming out of that last corner in second place and being slipstreamed to the line. He's not in that position at the moment. He sits third behind Piqueras, but it'll be interesting to see now if anyone can actually make a move before we get to the finish line. It's quite a long way down the start-finish straight, as you can see, as we go past the car grid hatchings. There we go, across the line, and it was Ruda who got Piqueras on the run to the line by just 2/100ths of a second.
Well, he came out of the final corner in 4th place, is Marcos Ruda. Ortola, meanwhile, went backwards. Oh, we've got a problem. Piqueras has got a problem. The number 18 on debut, we were just singing his praises. His left hand goes up into the air, and he's out of it. What a shame. It was an absolutely sensational debut from the 13-year-old Spaniard, but a technical problem with just 5 laps to go means he won't be picking up a podium on debut.
Disaster for Piqueras, through no fault of his own. He's done everything right in this race so far on his debut, but yeah, the bike appears to have given up on him as he approaches turn 1. Let's have a look. I don't think there's any contact with the rider in front, which might have dislodged something with his bike. We can already see him shifting down the gearbox to get down to the corner. He's on the outside at the moment, and all of a sudden the bike just doesn't want to play ball anymore. He goes around the outside of the Aspar bike of Ortola, hand straight up, and that's unfortunately the end of his opening race of the afternoon.
Trying to see what happened there, because as you say, he was blipping down the gearbox. Was trying to keep a close eye, but suddenly the left hand went in the air. He looked over his left hand shoulder to see what the problem was, but couldn't diagnose that one. But unfortunately, great shame for Angel Piqueras.
Yeah, we're coming up to the final corner now with David Alonso. Yellows are out at turn 13, so I don't know whether a rider has gone down there as well. But that's not going to inconvenience Alonso at the moment. He's just keeping up that rhythm, continues to lap in the mid-148s, and that's going to impress not only his own team, but teams up and down the paddock. Not just the fact that he's leading the race so comfortably, but his pace has been so consistent from start to finish. His lap times have very rarely differed by a couple of tenths of a second at a time, and that's how he's been able to just continuously extend this lead. He was half a second quicker than his teammate Ortola on the last lap, 6 tenths quicker on this lap. His lead now is over 5 seconds, with Ruda taking the line ahead of Ortola. But look at Ortola on the brakes, just straight back up the inside to regain second.
With Adrian Cruzes now up into 3rd place as well. Remember, he started from 18th on the grid, did the Spaniard, as a result of that 4th place penalty, but he's battled his way through up into podium contention. He's got his teammate for company 2 places behind Alberto Ferrandez. At the moment, it's the number 69 of Marcos Ruda who's in the Cuna de Campione sandwich, although Ruda has now been joined by his teammate Filippo Farioli, meaning that we've got an Aspar bike up there, we've got 2 Leclerc Academy bikes, and we've got 2 Cuna de Campiones machines, with now the number 95 of Marco Morelli being the singular Estrella Galicia talent team machine in this 6-rider fight. Could we call it 7? I think the number 13 of Marco Tapia, with now 4 laps to go, has just drifted off the back of it. It looks as though it's going to come down to these 6 riders to fight it out for the final podium places, with David Alonso at the moment unflustered at the front.
Yeah, I feared for Farioli there. He made a big dive up the inside into turn 2, into turn 3, should I say. And he had all the hallmarks of the incident that took Pedano out of the race a couple of laps ago, where he just got caught on the inside and tagged the rear of a rider. Fortunately, he didn't. We see a move coming in as well. I think that's Farioli again, having a look on to turn 9. He's certainly looking quite aggressive as these laps tick away. We're going to have 3 to go as they come across the line next time around. And as you say, it does look as if Tapia is just detached from this group. He is sort of chipping away at it on this lap. He has made up 4 tenths on this lap, so don't rule him out just yet. But he's running out of time to make a late break for the podium.
There goes Ruda again. Held such tight line through that double apex final turn 13, and he's able to get a run. Meanwhile, his teammate, with a slipstream of about 4 riders, pulls out to the right-hand side. The number 7 not even in shot at the moment. There he is, sweeps back in front, and he overtakes about 4 or 5 guys there to take control of this battle for second place, with the laps ticking away. Just 3 to go here in Estoril at the season opener for the Hawkers European Talent Cup. 5
abreast as they went across the line to start that lap. The 5 of them, Farioli, who's now holding second, all the way down to Ferrandez, who took the line in 6th, were covered by a tenth of a second. And that's how close it's going to be. So that exit from the final corner is going to be all important as we come into the closing stages of this race. Farioli now does lead this chase group in second place, with Alonso way out front. Ortola has spent most of this time, I would say, in this race doing the pacemaking in this second group, but he constantly finds himself under pressure as he comes down the straight. This time, though, he's on the offensive. He goes up the inside and moves past Farioli, who now has his teammate looking to try and take 4th place. And Ortola now outbreaks himself and undoes all of that hard work again.
Ortola going wide at turn 6, that is, as they now flick right into turn number 7, and suddenly the man that's been inside 2nd and 3rd place at the front of this group for pretty much all of the race has got a little bit more work to do with 2.5 laps remaining. The number 48 there in the middle of your screen has got 3 riders ahead of him, 3 riders behind him. That is not a position you would want to be in a European Talent Cup race with coming up to 2 laps to go.
No, and Tapia has made that progress. He has closed that group, gap on the group look, and as you can see, he's already made progress. He's passed the Estrella Galicia bike at the tail of this group of Marco Morelli on the 95, so he's already picked one off up to 7th place. So he might be the rider with the late race pace at the moment. On that last lap, he was lapping in the 148, did a 48.9 on that last lap. Everyone else was in the 49s, with the exception of Volpi, who leads that chase group, who was down in the 50s. So this is a rider who might well have the late race pace to end up cruising all the way through this and take that podium spot. He's not got much time left to do it. He's in the second last spot of this chase group. 2 laps to go as the Gliese bikes now take control of the front.
With Marcos Ruda leading at the moment, that battle for second place, teammate Farioli behind in 3rd. Here's the fight for 9th place. These guys a little bit further back. Alvaro Carpe has started to move a little bit further forward after that mistake on the opening lap, and he's joined by Matteo Volpi there, the number 77, a part of the 658 Squadra Corsa Academy team. Further back outside of the top 10 at the moment, the final point scoring finishes going the way of Julio Garcia, Harrison Voigt, Jacob Rulston, Noah Detweiler and Dean Berta Vinales, the cousin of MotoGP rider Maverick Vinales. But with 1.5 laps remaining, let's see if we can keep our eye on that fight for second and third place. 7 riders going to fight right to the death, if the previous laps are anything to go by. Here we are back again, and we're absolutely ruled out the number 13 of Marco Tapia, and I do apologise to the Spaniard because he's managed to regather his thoughts, regather his pace, get back onto the rear of this 7-rider gaggle, and now he's starting to make his way through the field with a dive bomb up the inside, and it pays off as well. Into the chicane, uphill, he manages to pick off another place.
Yeah, Tapia again, he's making that progress late in the race. A massive dive on the inside. Looked like there was almost contact there, and it's cost him as they go into the penultimate corner. He did take a huge dive up the inside. He's running out of time now because, again, it's splintered this group a bit as they all fight for second place. Tapia made that dive up the inside into turn 9. Didn't quite make it stick, but Alonso crosses the line with a huge lead of well over 6 seconds. He continues to lap in the 148, and he's only probably got another 1 minute 48 seconds to go before his first win.
4.2 kilometres remaining for the Colombian before he can pick up a first ever Hawkers European Talent Cup win. Meanwhile, as we go into the opening corner, 2 riders down. That looks like it's the number 69 of Marcos Ruda and Adrian Cruzes as well. Contact between the pair of them into the braking zone of turn number 1 of 2 of the favourites to pick up a podium finish have both gone down. That leaves Ivan Ortola away with it. Half a second clear in second place. The fight now is going to surely come down for who will take the final place on the podium. 4 riders remaining. At the moment, it's the 13 of Marco Tapia that leads. Not for long, though, because there goes Alberto Ferrandez through into third place.
Yeah, Fariola and Fernandez were trying to overtake each other there into the left-hander, and it almost let Tapia through in the inside to take the pair of them. But as it is, he's in 4th at the moment. The fight for the final podium position, as you say, looks like it's a 4-way fight now with Ortola. He was the chief beneficiary of that nasty incident into turn 1. He was the right side of it. He was just ahead of it and was able to break clear. And it looks now as if Aspar are on course for a the season.
The fight for third place, half a lap remaining at the moment. Ferrandez leaves it with Tapia there in 4th. 5th place is Marco Morelli, and then Farioli there is up to 5th place. Now he's ahead of Tapia. We're into the final chicane. There's Ortola. He's got 2nd place in the bag now, surely, as we go into the final sector. At the front, David Alonso is surely going to take victory. Ferrandez has put in a dynamite final lap here. He's pulled 2 or 3 bike lengths out over Tapia. Is he going to secure a debut podium finish in the Hawkers European Talent Cup? Talking of debut finishes, this is going to be a first ever win for David Alonso. What a performance from the Colombian. Started from pole position, never looked back. It's a debut win for him, and it's an Aspar 1-2 with Ivan Ortola taking 2nd place, and Ferrandez wins the scrap for the final place on the podium, with Morelli, the unfortunate man, to miss out in 4th place. Well, we had to wait a while for it, Lewis, but what a way to kick off the season.
Fantastic race to start the season, full of incident. Morelli misses out on the podium, but he did just slipstream past Tapia on the run to the line to move from 5th to 4th. And as you can see now, he did it by just 26 thousandths of a second. Farioli finishes 6th, Volpi 7th, Carpe takes 8th, Garcia 9th, and Harrison Voigt rounds out the top 10. Rulstone, Detweiler, Vinales taking you down to 13th. And the beneficiaries on that last lap of the incident at turn 1 are Philip Ton and Justin Foucault, who round out the points.
Well, it was Aspar's day in 2019 when Ivan Ortola picked up 2 Hawkers Cup wins, and Barry Baltus was able to pick up a Junior World Championship win, and it looks like it's going to be the Aspar team's day in 2020 as well. Both Ortola and Alonso were on the podium this time last year in wet conditions in 1st and 3rd place, but now it's one better. It's a 1-2 for the open back Aspar Junior team, with David Alonso taking a first ever victory in the class and Ivan Ortola backing him up in 2nd place. Alberto Ferrandez, as we said, picking up 3rd place on his debut in the European Talent Cup. A great performance from the Cuna de Campeones man. Won the Cuna de Campeones Moto 4 Championship last year and has made the jump into the European Talent Cup in 2020 look pretty easy. Meanwhile, that's a great sight to see. Adrian Cruzes on his feet. Looks as though he's okay as a result of this nasty incident going into turn 1 on the start of the final lap. Oh, it looks as though Cruzes just got it a little bit wrong and ran into the back of Marcos Ruda. Poor old Marcos Ruda. This will be a better angle. Yeah, it looks as though in the braking zone it was Cruzes that just got it a little bit wrong, trying to dive up the inside, and unfortunately braked a little bit too late and went into the rear wheel of the number 69, and as a result, both of them went down. Of course, glad to see that both of them been able to get up. This is the reaction of the Liglice Academy squad. Unsurprisingly, pretty devastated to see their front runner go down, and then for his teammate Marco Tapia to just miss out on the podium. But 5th place for the Italian is by far and away his best ever finish in the Hawkers Talent Cup. Meanwhile, into Parc Fermé for the first time comes David Alonso, parks into the P1 spot, and he can celebrate at long last. Picked up 2 third-place finishes in 2019 and 2 second-place finishes. He's had to wait for a debut win, but at long last it has come for the Colombian. Gets a big hug off team manager, former 125cc world champion Nico Terol. And also a big high five from teammate as well, Ivan Ortola. There's going to be some big smiles under those masks in the Aspar camp after picking up a 1-2 in the first race of the year. Great ride from that man, Ivan Ortola, of course, the runner-up in the 2019 championship. We'll be hoping to go one better in 2020, and no better way to start the season than a 2nd place finish. I'm sure he'll be hoping from the 2nd row of the grid to maybe try and go with his teammate in the 2nd race of the day later on. There's Alberto Ferrandez. The 12-year-old on debut jumps onto the podium. He had big boots to fill, jumping onto Ethan Guevara's bike, the man, of course, who dominated last year's championship. But it looks as though he's not going to do a bad job, the 12-year-old, already on the podium after just 1 race in the Hawkers European Talent Cup. Incidentally, there's going to be a drop 1 position for the number 13. We were just talking about the number 7 of Filippo Farioli. It still remains a good result for him. He will jump up to 5th place, and Marco Tapia, the number 13, of course, who we were just saying has picked up his best ever result. Previous best was 12th. We thought he'd come across the line in 5th, but it looks as though he's going to have to drop 1 place to 6th place as a result of exceeding track limits on that final lap. So as David Alonso jumps onto the scales in the back of your picture there, just to make sure that everything is all under control, is over the minimum weight limit that have in place for the European Talent Cup. Once he's done his weighing, I'm sure he'll then turn around and walk across to Lewis Sotheby, who's made his way down from the commentary box into Parc Fermé to speak with our eventual race winner. There is Lewis, primed and ready. Unfortunately, hasn't got a rider to speak to just yet. David Alonso just finishing off all of the necessary rules and regulations at the completion of a race. Final top 10 finishers we'll just run through quickly. Of course, we've mentioned Alonso, Ortola and Ferrandez, your podium finishers. Morelli, Tapia and Farioli in 4th, 5th and 6th. Then have Volpi, Carpe, Garcia and Voigt in the top 10. But here comes David Alonso. For the first time in his European Talent Cup career, he takes victory. And very shortly, he's going to be speaking to Lewis Sotheby. Right, let's jump down to Parc Fermé and hear from your race winner. Here's David Alonso with Lewis.
David Alonso, winner of the first race of the Hawkers European Talent Cup for 2020. The perfect start for your season, leading from start to finish.
I am very happy. I do a really good race. All the time, the first one. I am very happy with the pace that I have in all the race. Thanks to all the team because of the work they do here and in the test, and also to my family that support me. And now, well, we are thinking now in the second race, but we are very happy of this result, and in the other race more.
¿Y en español?
Estoy muy contento, no me esperaba que desde la primera vuelta iba a sacar distancia, ya luego me he concentrado en mantener un ritmo Y bueno, muy contento de esta carrera, la primera carrera del año primero. También dar muchas gracias al equipo por todo el trabajo que ha hecho y a mi familia que me apoya también y desde casa.
Gracias, well done.
Here are the highlights then from the opening Hawkers European Talent Cup race of 2020, and it was the Colombian David Alonso to start from pole position. He's dominated the weekend, fastest in free practice, fastest in qualifying, fastest in warm-up, and he got a great start to the race from his debut pole. Meanwhile, behind, the battle for second and third place would really light up with Ivan Ortola, his Aspar teammate, trying desperately to take control of it and close down the number 80 ahead. But unfortunately, had debutant Angel Piqueras for company. I wasn't particularly pleased or happy in letting the Spaniard escape and trying to close down his teammate. It allowed Alonso to break clear. Meanwhile, carnage would start to ensue behind with Zonta van den Gorberg, having started from the first ever front row start, the first man to get collected. Later on, we saw two Cuna de Campeones men go down in the form of De Girasacco and the number 38 of Juan Rodriguez. Then in the closing stages, that was the Frenchman, the number 3 of Matteo Pedino go down. But as we got into the final laps with Alonso away with it at the start, it looks like the fight was going to come down with Angel Piqueras right in the mix. With just 3 laps remaining, the Spaniard undercame some technical problems, so we were left to just 5 riders to try and fight it out for the final podium places. The number 7 of Filippo Farioli took control with 2 laps to go before then on the final lap, the number 10 of Adrian Cruces ran into the back of Marcos Ruda. That allowed Ivan Ortola to escape for second place, but it was all about the number 80 of David Alonso, the Colombian, taking a first ever Hawkers European Talent Cup win. Here are the results then from our first Hawkers European Talent Cup race in 2020, an 11-race championship starting here in Estoril with David Alonso a dominant victor, 6 seconds clear of teammate Ivan Ortola with a debut podium on his debut European Talent Cup race for Alberto Ferrandez. 4th place going to Marco Morelli ahead of Filippo Farioli, Marcos Tapia and Matteo Volpi. Top 10 finish for Harrison Voigt ahead of his compatriot Jacob Rulston. Noah Detweiler, Dean Berta, Philip Ton and Justin Fockert were your final point scoring finishers, with Fockert just getting the better of Oscar Almonacio on the final lap. Further down, Torin Collins, the Canadian, in 18th, ahead of Mario Meyer, Tyler Scott, Blai Tiras, Milan Pawlicek and Mari Mitzeri. And then we get into the non-finishers of course, Adrian Cruz has one of them on the final lap. But the good news for all of the non-finishers there is that we will go racing in race 2 of the Hawkers European Talent Cup Championship later on this afternoon, with the race kicking off at 1 p.m. local time. That's GMT +1 here in Portugal. The first podium ceremony of 2020 then, with Nico Terol making his way up onto the podium to collect the team award on behalf of the Aspar squad. Alberto Ferrandez there in 3rd. Just 12 years of age, but already onto the podium. Ivan Ortola, the 15-year-old, you can see quite a bit taller than the 12-year-old to his left-hand side. And then your race winner, David Alonso, jumping onto the top step of the podium for the first time in his career. Nico Terol celebrates for the Aspar team with a 1-2. Had a dominant day here in Estoril in 2019, and it looks as though they're going to do the same in 2020. Can their Junior World Championship guys pick up where the European Talent Cup guys have started? We'll move our attention to them in a couple of hours' time. We've got Moto2 coming up next. There's Ivan Ortola, another podium finish for him in the European Talent Cup. 3 victories last year to help him to runners up. This is the first time he's actually jumped onto the podium, and he's not been on the top step. Meanwhile, for the first time in his career, 4 visits to the podium in 2019, but he never got to stand on the top step. Now he finally can do. 6 seconds clear in the opening race of 2020. Your first victor in the Hawkers European Talent Cup is David Alonso, and as a result as well, he'll pick up €250 courtesy of sponsor Repsol. Now the Colombian national anthem rings out here in Portugal. The Colombian national anthem rings out here at the Circuito de Estoril. Surely one of the first times in FIMSEV Repsol history. I'm just trying to rack my brain of a previous Colombian rider that has been able to win a race. Certainly for the first time in a long time. David Alonso, of course, was born in Spain. His grandparents are from Colombia, which is why he rides under the yellow, blue and red flag.
And it sounds like we're going to be hearing that national anthem quite a lot on the evidence of the race we've just watched.
Yeah, that should be a national anthem that we might get a little bit used to over the coming weeks and months in 2020. Of course, he's part of the Red Bull rookies this year as well, so we may well hear it there as well. What a start that was then to the Hawkers European Talent Cup. 10 races to go. Of course, it's a condensed season as it is for all World Championships and championships around the world in 2020. Just 10 races to go, but it's an early lead for David Alonso. My maths isn't very good, Lewis, so doing the championship points after the first race is always pretty easy. We know exactly who's going to be where. 5 points clear at the moment of teammate Ivan Ortolo, with Alberto Ferrandez a further 9 points back. Some good point-scoring finishes there for the Aussies, Harrison Voigt and Jacob Rulston. Plus Noah Detweiler as well, the Swiss riders. Jumping on to the points. A best finish for him in European Talent Cup history. But today, so far, has been about this man. David Alonso takes the first win of 2020. He's got to do it all over again in a couple of hours' time. But up next, don't go anywhere. European Moto2 guys are about to kick off their season.